Hello everyone. I, Ms. Nupur Chauhan from the Department of Economics and Psychology, welcome you all to this webinar on living in the times of pandemic, so psychological impact of lockdown and self-isolation. As you all know, on March 24, 2020, the Government of India under Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi ordered a nationwide lockdown, thus limiting the movement of entire 1.3 billion population of India as a preventive measure against the COVID-19 pandemic situation. COVID-19 has definitely caused severe threats to the physical and psychological well-being of people. Although self-isolation, which is an outgrowth of lockdown, helped in achieving the goal of reducing the infection, but at the same time limited access to family, friends, and other social support systems leads to loneliness, which eventually influences our mental health and well-being negatively. With this thought in our mind, the Department of Economics and Psychology planned and curated this webinar to help students gain knowledge about the pandemic from the perspective of psychology. The guest speaker for today's webinar is Ms. Mimamsa Singh Tawar. She is the lead clinical psychologist with the Department of Mental Health Behavioral Sciences, Fortis Healthcare, Gurugram. She is also cognitive behavioral therapist working in the clinical space using evidence-based treatments with adolescents, parents, couples, and families. Moreover, she heads the Fortis School Mental Health Program with a sense of passion for enhancing the mental health in children. She is also a co-author of parenting book, Raising Confident Children, a 52-week guide, and Talking About Mental Health in the Classroom, a mental health curriculum for teachers. She has also co-authored two Amazon Kindle edition ebooks, How to Engage with Your Kids While Working with Home, 21 Tips for 21 Days, and Don't Worry, Here's How You Can Keep Your Mind Fit During Pandemic. Ma'am has actively engaged herself with schools, leading NGOs, print and electronic media, and corporates through workshops and trainings to raise mental health awareness across the country. So without any further delay, I now request Ms. Mimamsa to take over this session from here.
Thank you so much, Nupur. A warm good afternoon to all of you. I hope my voice is fine because I can hear.
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay, perfect. So I think we are all in a very, very unique time. Maybe something that hopefully we would be experiencing only once in a lifetime and not again. But again, this is a very unique, unprecedented time that we are all in. And there are a lot of things that we are going to learn from this, a lot of things that we are going to experience from this, and we already are experiencing. And, there are going to be a lot of learnings. But at the same time, I think this time period has really brought mental health on the forefront, because we can see and we all are experiencing a lot of challenges in the ongoing time period. Each one of us is going through some changes, some challenges. We are trying to see how can we manage life as it is coming, because nothing in the future right now is certain. We do not know where we are going to go ahead from this time period. We do not know what is going to come out of this. All we know is how can we actually make our present more meaningful for each one of us. So I think this time period has really made that very, very pertinent and very important, how to really live life in the present moment, in the here and now. And which is why, our emotional well-being and our mental well-being is something that makes it extremely important for each one of us, and even for our family members to, take care of, so that we all are able to come out of this time period in a more resilient way. So let's look at, what challenges we may be facing in the ongoing time period. There are changes when it comes to, from meeting each other in a physical space, learning, teaching, doing a lot of things in a physical space. Every crisis situation brings with it its own challenges, and the current one has asked and demands us to be within our homes and try and connect with each other. Well, I do feel that, we are blessed to be in a time period where technology has really acted as a boom. That even though we are in a time where we've been, asked to be within our home spaces, this is something that has helped us connect with each other. But still, because human connection in a physical space is so fundamental to our well-being. Each one of us are still facing our own challenges to not being able to meet our friends, not being able to meet our family, not being able to go out without a sense of scare, without a sense of fear from the virus. And I think that in itself is leading to an increase in anxiety, an increase in mood variations, challenges for most of us. So what is it that we can do? First of all, what we need to understand is that, having this anxiety and slight mood variations is quite normal. I think it's very, very normal for each one of us to have that kind of fear a little bit at the back of our mind, that what if I catch that virus, or what if my family member catches a virus? How are we able to going to deal with it?
Sorry to interrupt, ma'am, but your voice is really low. Can you please be a little louder, ma'am?
I will just, yeah, I've increased the volume too. Is this fine now?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, ma'am.
Right. So what is it that we can do? I think what we need to understand is that, yes, there is a lot of fear and scare about the virus because of the community engagement and the community transmission which is happening, which is why, as a part of our social responsibility, what can we do? So we need to continue to follow all the precautions because that's a part of our responsibility. If we find our own loopholes of what we can do to perhaps not follow it, then we are also responsible to, sort of contributing to the already ongoing fear and, the transmission. So as a part of our own individual responsibility, as a part of the society, as a part of the youth that we are, who are going to make some change, it is very important that we continue to, follow the precautions, encourage people around us to follow the precautions, wear the mask, because that's very, very important. And that's also something which is in our control. When something goes out of control externally, we have to put in our efforts to see things that are there in our control, rather than resist and think about why the external is happening like this. Why the world is going like this, why this had to happen. Well, this has happened. And the only way forward is to accept this, see what is it that I can do to make this better for myself, people around me, and for the community at large, because that's the positive way of going ahead with it. So first come first is following all the precautions. Second, focus on stories of recovery. We all can have our own fears and our own challenges. In family, we may be talking about a lot of things. Elderly in our family may be having a lot of anxiety. So as a part of that, I think it's very, very important that we, as young people, as youth, create an atmosphere of positivity within our homes, where we tell our parents, even our elderly, that there are stories of recovery, there are stories of hope as well. And rather than putting all our attention to the worst, it's very important that we refocus and reshift our attention to the positive aspect of it as well. The third part is information. I think when it comes to mental health and even other illnesses that we've seen in the past, whether it is HIV, whether it is mental health, even tuberculosis earlier, we have in the history faced a lot of stigma to do with all of these illnesses. And that precisely happens because of lack of awareness of the right information. So which is why it is very important that rather than adding on to stigma and discrimination for this another disease and pandemic that we are facing, we focus on awareness, we focus on the right information. And if we do not have that, then we try and look at where we can find the right information. Well, the fact is also that, a lot of questions are unanswered, and which is something that we need to accept. But what we have is what we need to understand, and we need to follow that. Alongside this, I think what we need to also understand is that, like I said, that, because this time period has brought in a lot of changes, a lot of challenges for each one of us, let's look at how it may have impacted you and me in an ongoing time period. So we are not meeting our friends. We are not having classes in a physical space. We are with our families the whole day, 24 hours. We are not used to it. I'm sure a lot of you may be having your own conflicts either with your siblings or with your parents. It's a difficult time period. I think each one of us is experiencing that. When can I have my own space? But I think this is also a time period where we need to somewhere relook at relationships, relook at how can we make my time in the time period more meaningful, and really look at that in the time that I have in my hand now, how can I actually connect with my own self, with my own creativity, because we all have certain strengths and abilities. So in the usual rigmarole of life that we were leading till now, where we would live our standard, a life where we would go in the morning to college, we meet our friends, we do our lectures, we come back, we study a little bit, maybe not, we would do other things, watch our shows, connect with a few friends, talk to them, and then go off to sleep. Like a conventional way of living that we were having. There is a change now. We all keep talking about change. We all keep talking about what different can I do with my life. Well, life has given us something different to do now. And that's a different perspective of looking at it. You have some more time on you because you're saving a lot of time on travel. Of course, classes right now are becoming more virtual, which can become a little monotonous sometimes. But I think the idea is to connect with each other. That is what is more important. At the same time, when you have this time to yourself, look at what is it that you can actually do to sort of connect with your own sense of strength, your abilities. Really try and connect with those aspects of yours. Each one of us has certain abilities and certain skills and certain strengths which sometimes we may not be able to focus on, or we may not be aware of. So you need to really spend that time to be able to focus on those strengths and abilities. And that's a part of, our positive living, a positive, optimistic way of looking at life, and also looking at in a positive way about our own selves. So rather than having, looking at external reassurances all the time from people around us, in a time where you are with your own self, try and look at and reflect within your own selves, what is my strength, what is my skill? Let me take this as an exercise for myself. When you do that, somewhere you also begin to connect with your own inner sense of creativity. You realize, there is something more that I can do. You realize that I have that strength to be able to deal with this time period in a more resilient way. And which is why, if you actually see, if you may have noticed a lot of pictures on Instagram or on Facebook, suddenly you've started seeing a lot of pictures of the clouds, of the trees, of the birds, of people doing these small things, gardening, somebody cooking, somebody is just, changing into a different style and then, coming up over there. So life suddenly took that different transition of how we actually look at it. These things were always there, but we never gave importance to them. Now that we have come to ourselves, suddenly all of these things are coming to our, to our eyes, and we are looking more and more, and we're trying to enjoy that part of our day-to-day life. And that's what living in present is, where you spend each moment enjoying, in the here and now. So whether you are reading, whether you are making art, whether you are, taking up music, whether you're writing, whether you're good at making, writing poems, poetry, anything, whatever you're good at, spend time in carving a niche for yourself in that particular aspect. Your skills, your hobbies, your talents are always, always very important in forming a sense of self which is much stronger, because that makes you very, very confident. So many times, because we do not pay too much attention to our skills and our hobbies, and we focus more and more on the academic, we don't realize our own inner strengths. And which is why this is the time where we need to actually focus on that. The second aspect is look at certain things that can actually calm you. Because like I said that, this is a time where we are all having some mood variations, and which is quite normal. So you can feel sad on a certain day. Maybe you can feel a little more restless, angry, or irritable because you've been having these conflicts within home. You can also feel dull, demotivated. You may also be procrastinating sometimes with a lot of things. How can I deal with all of these things? One, when it comes to my mood, I need to know if I'm feeling a certain way. what can I do to change my mood from that to a better one? So handling one's own emotions is a skill, and we all need to learn that skill. Each one of us are going to experience varied kind of emotions, and it is normal to experience them. There is no harm in feeling angry. There is no harm in feeling sad. There is no harm in feeling guilt or shame or embarrassment or irritability, because these are emotions, they are bound to come in. What becomes harmful is when we continue to stay in that emotional space, not making the effort to move from that red zone to a yellow zone and then a right zone, a green zone. So, which is why it is very important that I need to know what can I do to make myself feel better if I am in this red zone. So, if you're feeling sad, what is the automatic response to your sadness? You do not want to talk to people. You disengage yourself from a lot of things. You don't feel interest in things that you would do earlier. You feel lack of motivation. You may also be experiencing changes in your sleep. You may also be experiencing changes in your appetite. These are all signs that you may be having some stress and sadness or a bad day that particular day. So I need to know what can I do to be able to feel better from that. So when you are feeling sad, we need to go in the opposite direction. So the opposite direction is when sadness says disengage, the opposite action to it would be engage. So even if you are feeling that I do not want to talk to anyone, I do not want to do anything, I just want to sit in my room in a dark space, that's just going to make it worse. So, because that's the natural response to it. But a more adaptive response would be once I recognize I'm feeling sad, I acknowledge it, I accept it, and then I say, okay, let me see what I can do to make myself feel better. So I engage, I talk to my friends, I talk to my family, I try and listen to some songs. Music has a lot of evidence to make your moods feel better. Have a playlist in your phones, or where you have songs to every mood. So if you're feeling sad, have songs that are maybe low paced, and then the rhythm and the tone of it changes, and it goes in a more happier or a faster tune. And you will see a smooth shift in your mood. When you feel sad, the natural reaction to the face and the brain is you feel sad, and the smile on the face just completely goes away. But if you actually ever try, even if you put a half smile on your face when you recognize you're sad, there is suddenly an opposite signal to your brain, and you feel less intensity of your sadness. So, these are certain skills of how you can deal with your emotions. Similarly, anger and irritability. The natural response to that is to scream, to shout, to sometimes do anything else in which you have become reactive. Now we need to practice opposite action to that. And that would be need to calm myself, which means I breathe in and out. I move away from that space. I first take a break, take a stroll, calm myself up. Only when I feel better is when I again engage and look at how can I resolve the problem in front of me. Now that's the adaptive way of dealing with your anger and irritability. And these things are very important to be able to also maintain your relationships. Because when we are constantly angry, irritable, it will also impact your relationships. If you're constantly sad, again, it will impact your relationship. So it's important that when we have a bad day, or a day when you're feeling angry, or a day you're feeling something else, it's important that we look at what can we do to change from that emotional space to the other. The other aspect to that is that sometimes, despite doing all of these things that I'm telling you to do, you talk to everyone, you try and engage, you do your regular things, you make in the effort, you still feel that your mood is not getting better. You still feel you're persistently sad. You still feel there is lack of motivation. You still feel that, life seems very gloomy, and you're having constant negative thoughts about yourself and people around you and even life at large. This is the time where you need to recognize and understand that these are signs that you may be having some signs of stress or a mental health problem. And this is the time where you need to reach out for help. Whether you reach out to help to your family, to your friend, to a colleague, to a teacher, counselor, or you get on a helpline, or you talk to an expert, but talk about it, because it's very, very important that you give importance to your mental health. Worldwide, there are more than 300 million people surviving depression. More than 265 million people diagnosed with anxiety. So this is what the nature of mental health that we are looking at this point in time. That this is something that is impacting worldwide, and it needs to be handled, and it needs to be tackled. And responsibility again for you and me, each one of us, is that the moment we recognize this is happening, we get on a helpline, we talk to someone about it. We do not suffer in silence, because that's when mental health problems increase more and more. So the moment you recognize these signs which I just mentioned, please reach out for help. Fortis is a helpline which is available in 16 languages. It is available 24/7, and we have a psychologist to support you, to hear you. So, whenever you feel low, sad, please get on that helpline. The number for that is 837-6804-102. I will repeat, 837-6804-102. The way we treat our physical health, that the moment I feel that there is a body ache or a stomach ache, and we share it with our parents, and then they immediately call up a physician or a family doctor, is the same way we need to manage and deal with our mental health as well. Your mental health is something that impacts every aspect of your life. Your physical health, you take medicine, you take rest, it becomes better. But when it comes to mental health, imagine it also impacts your physical health. It impacts your relationships. It impacts your academics. It impacts your motivation. So every aspect of your life actually gets impacted when your mental health is not up to the mark. So which is why it is very important that, we continue to talk more positively about mental health, to reduce the stigma, because that is the reason why most people do not talk about it. They do not reach out for help, hesitate from doing that, continue to feel that, people will not understand me. And that is the reason, not sharing it with family, friends, or even getting on a helpline, they all seem very meaningless. And you continue to just keep suffering in silence. But we need to change that narrative. And that's why it is so important that young people like you talk more positively and sensitively about mental health. Even when you're having some discussions in a group, be mindful of the fact that you're not just laughing or joking about when it comes to issues related to mental health, because you do not know, maybe any of your friends may be experiencing some struggle with it. And the moment they realize that, in a group, my friends, this is how they think about it, they might again feel ashamed to be able to come out in open with what they may be struggling with. Which is why we really need to have a very positive, sensitive, and accepting approach towards mental health. Our conversations need to be very positive, very encouraging when it comes to mental health. When you realize your peer, when your friend is also struggling with something to do with mental health, hear them non-judgmentally. Be empathetic. We keep talking about kindness and empathy, but what really does it mean to be empathetic and kindness and kind is that you just listen to them. You try and understand without passing on any judgment, without saying, how can this happen to you? Without saying, oh, this is rubbish. You were absolutely fine 2 days back. How can this even happen to you? Without saying that, do these things and it will get better. Just hear. Give them the space to talk to you, and just you support them and encourage them to seek help again. Tell them that it's okay to feel like this. But again, what is more important is that they should also seek help for this. So, if you have a helpline number, encourage them to get on that. Encourage them to seek an expert help. That's how we break the stigma. That's how we break the discrimination. And you be there for them. Check on them once in a while. Ask them, how can you be kind enough to provide them support in the best possible way? We all have our versions of how can I support somebody, but often do we forget to ask them that, what help do you need from me? So, ask them when they're struggling, that how can you help them? That's very, very important. So, my giveaway for today's session is going to be that in times where life seems sometimes that, we do not know what to look forward to because we do not know what is going to happen in the future, you look forward to your present. You look forward to your day. You make short-term goals. You find meaning and purpose in small things. I don't know how many of you have actually heard about tragic optimism. it's a concept given by Viktor Frankl in times of Holocaust, where people survivors of Holocaust, they actually looked at life and a sense of meaning and hope on a very day-to-day basis. And for them, hope and meaning was, how can I live my day-to-day, and how can I actually support my fellow in the best possible way. So that's what gave them meaning, and that's what gave them hope. So it's the same way, how we need to look at life right now, that what can I do to make it more meaningful for myself? Can I show gratitude to someone? Can I be thankful to someone? These are things that actually generate a lot of positive emotions. Can I feel that, three things that I feel blessed today about? Can I think about, my skills, strengths, how do I enjoy my music more? How can I immerse myself in simple small things that I do? So for example, if you're listening to music, you spend time 10-15 minutes, and you get lost in listening to music, that the moment you stop listening to it, you feel so refreshed. When you're making your art, your drawing, those 10-15 minutes or half an hour, whatever time you spend, you really need to feel immersed in it. This is how you make your moments more joyful, and that's how life becomes more meaningful. See, how can you contribute to the community? A lot of young people have made a lot of pages, social media pages, trying to use social media in a more positive and optimistic way, and that's the way forward to it. And how can you have a cause that you would like to support? Anything, whether it is mental health, whether it is, gender sensitivity, whether it is bullying, anything, pick up a cause for yourself and see how can you contribute to it. Volunteer for that, because when you contribute to the community, again, it gives you a sense of meaning and purpose. And like I said, give importance to your mental health, continue to keep talking about it, break the stigma, unmute yourself, do not isolate yourself. The moment you realize it is impacting you, reach out, talk to someone, share, express, and like I said, unmute yourself. I'm ready to have questions from you all.
Thank you, ma'am, for your valuable guidance. We will now have a brief Q&A session. So any participant who has any query, please write it in the chat box and it will be addressed by ma'am. Please write down your queries in the chat box.
Okay, what should one do when facing anxiety during this pandemic? Like I said, it is normal to have a little bit of increase in your anxiety in the ongoing time period, specifically if it comes to health. What you need to do is have some exercises to your day, some physical exercise, some breathing exercises. Breathing exercises have a lot of evidence to make yourself feel calm and better. Have some goals to your day, so your mind is occupied with those goals. And tell yourself that, these thoughts that are coming to my mind, I need to treat them as the background music, and you let them keep on playing at the back of the mind. You continue to focus on the task in front of you. Slowly and steadily, you will see a change, a reduction in the intensity of the anxiety that you're experiencing. Anxiety is generally about, anticipation of something bad that may happen to you or a family member. And that's what anxiety is. And the anxiety also impacts you physiologically. So you would feel a lot restless. You would feel sometimes a little shortness of breath. Mind continues to run with a lot of thoughts. And they might sometimes be illogical, sometimes may be actually real when it comes to context. So like I said, that, in the ongoing time period, if you fear about health, that's, quite genuine. But then again, there could also be certain thoughts that may be a little illogical, not fitting into the context. So it's important that you continue to keep doing what you're doing. Treat your thoughts like a background music. Keep focusing on the task which is in front of you. Do some physical exercise. Do some breathing exercises. That helps a lot. And how can you positively channelize your anxiety? Look at that also. So sometimes, for some people, when they make art, it helps them channelize their anxiety in a different way. When they go out for a running, helps them, again, channelize anxiety in a different way. Engage in dance, writing, journaling, writing a poetry. All of these are ways of how you can positively channelize your anxiety in a certain way. So, do all of these things, it will help you. And if you still feel it's not working, get on a helpline. As lockdown seems like the biggest psychological experiment for around 2.6 billion people worldwide, what, according to you, is the biggest of the psychological issues, mental disorder that affected people the most? Well, I think it's not just the lockdown. Mental health has been a challenge and has been an issue before that as well. It has certainly increased because of the lockdown, but the numbers I gave you are actually there, for quite some time. And these numbers from WHO in 2018, where 360 million people across the world are impacted by depression, and some similar number even by anxiety. So anxiety and depression continues to be some of the most common mental health disorders and psychological issues that impact most people. And the way forward is to actually, not just bottle it up, but reach out for help in a timely manner, so that a right intervention, a treatment which is more evidence based, you see a psychiatrist, you see a psychologist, and they help you deal with this. So it's very important that we do that. And of course, in the lockdown period, it has increased, and which is why we continue to say that, talk to someone on a helpline, talk to an expert, and keep on doing some of these other things which are preventive. So all these things that I mentioned about, nourishing your hobbies, nurturing a lot of other skills and strengths, these are preventive. They will help you prevent, your mental health and mental well-being in a positive way. What about expressing? When someone is facing an issue, they don't know how to deal with stuff. Well, yes, and which is why it is important to talk to someone who you think can understand. If you sometimes feel a little hesitant to do it, then you talk to an expert. And like I said, there are helpline numbers which are available right now. Sometimes journaling can also help you express. Sometimes people verbally are not very comfortable talking about things. So when you begin to journal, you begin to write about your thoughts, you reflect back on them, you feel a lot better and confident in expressing yourself. So it's a slow process, but the idea is to keep doing it, keep expressing yourself. How to address sleep deprivation issues effectively when a person is completely alone? Sleep, yes, because of lack of mobility and lack of a lot of exercise, sleep is something which is coming up as an issue. What you do, some form of physical exercise that is possible to do within your home spaces, or if you have a veranda or a balcony where you can do some kind of exercises, yoga, a 15-minute routine that you can do, please do that, because that will help you regulate your body and your mind, and that will be also helpful in your sleep. Secondly, have a winding time for your sleep. So don't just watch TV and try and go off to sleep. I think when you watch TV, it activates your mind a lot, and you take longer to fall asleep. A lot many times you also see a lot of TV on our bedroom, and we continue to watch them and then we try and sleep. So it should always be separate, because that helps you. So there is something called contextual learning. So when you're watching TV in your living room and then you know that you now have to go to your bedroom to sleep, it also creates a context. Now this is my winding time. I need to now go to my bed, take a shower, or maybe read something, listen to some calm music, and then go off to sleep. So it's very important that you have some winding time before you sleep. Also, music has a lot of evidence. You can put some sleep meditation music, or you can put some white noise. It helps you to go off to sleep. Some few good books that you can read to uplift your mood. Well, it's absolutely your choice, whatever you would like to read. I have been sharing that, one should certainly read a lot of books which talk about, maybe something to do with crisis, so that one knows how to, or one hears from these other stories, hopeful stories from the past that happened. So, Viktor Frankl's In Search for Meaning is one of the very, very popular and well-known books. You can read that. You can also read about, there are various books on Holocaust, but there are also books on, partition, for that matter. That was also a time where people were moving away from their families and how it impacted them. But there are stories of hope always in all of these times, so you learn a lot from these stories. So read something that, one that helps you find hope and meaning in those stories, but at the same time also have some light good reading as well to a lot of other things, fiction, non-fiction, whatever you like. Okay, I think my voice is it still low or is it better now? Somebody's mentioned it's quite low.
It's good, ma'am.
Okay, great. Once you're treated, how likely is it that someone anxiety symptoms or any issues will return? Well, again, it is like, if you have a stomach ache, it can also come back. But then again, if it is treated properly, there are chances it will not come back again very soon. Or even if it does, you would be better able to manage it. How we need to look at is that, at the time that I have it, I manage it and I do everything that my treatment requires me to do, and I continue to follow it. And there are less chances of relapse then. But yes, like I said, that, this is again, we are looking at hormones. So sometimes it can come back maybe in a milder form. And if that happens, you manage it at your end. If you can't, again, go back to your mental health care provider and just deal with it. So you have to really have an outlook of how you treat your physical health. And, things can come back to you, but you again go to a doctor and you get treated and you're fine. It's the same way with your mental health, that you have to take an approach. How can we determine if an illness is causing depression or depression is causing illness? Well, depression is an illness. It's a mental disorder, and it is a mental illness. And why we say that these are illnesses is because there is a biological cause to them. It's not just psychological and something that is running in your mind, but there are hormones that are actually causing these symptoms. So sometimes people may not have a stressor in their life that might have triggered depression or anxiety, but it might have just come in because something to do with the hormones went in on an imbalance, and which is why they had it. So it's an illness, and which is why I said it needs to be treated like your physical illnesses as well. On one hand, we say that people should talk more about their feelings so that they feel a bit light in their head. On the other hand, we say that divert yourself and do not overthink about it. And can you please help me with this situation? Well, yes, because it has to be a balance of both. In the initial, when you feel anxious and you realize you do not know what to do with this, you talk to someone. Once they validate you, they help you, then that's when you need to take this other mode of dealing with that. So overthinking in anxiety is a very natural response. So once you've spoken to someone that you are suffering with anxiety, you have to deal with this, you need help with this, then you also need to, as a part of your own work towards how to manage my anxiety, refocus your attention. Try and not overthink about it, and shift your attention to various things in front of you. So one has to do both the things. Because if we keep on talking about it, what is troubling you, you're again giving a lot of attention to that thing, and that again will continue to precipitate your anxiety. So it's not about ignoring, but it's about balancing the two. Sometimes when people you confine to are facing the same, how do you deal with such a situation wherein you don't want to add to someone's situation, particularly in the present situation of what can one do to deal with such situation alone? I did not understand the question very well. What I can understand is when you confine to are also facing the same, in the sense that when you're dealing with the ongoing situation where you're alone or you're confined to a given space and there are other people also in a similar space, what is it that you can do to manage it? So one, like I said, I think we are in a great time where we can actually continue to be connected with our friends and our peers and our family. So even if you are, maybe in hostel, or maybe, I think hostels are right now shut down. But if you are living in a PG, you're not being able to travel, or even if you are with your families and you're not being able to, go out, meet your friends, what you need to understand is that we are right now in a space where we can actually virtually connect with people. So make use of that. In time period like this, loneliness needs to be less and less, because there are different means of how we can connect. And loneliness, why does it happen? And I'll tell you, another reason, or, an added factor to that is, a lot many times we connect with our friends and family through text messages. or through social media platforms. So, your followers, on different social media platforms are not your relationships. Your relationships are people who you can count on your finger. And when you know who these people are, rather than just texting them and sending your emoticons, try and connect more verbally and virtually with them. Because until unless you don't have that, you will never be able to assess or understand their emotional connect, their facial expression, the pitch, the tone, the empathy, that love, care, concern that comes in a voice. On a text message, you're not able to have all those elements, and which is why we continue to feel disconnected with people. And it also leaves a lot of space for misinterpretations to happen in relationships. Someone might have said something on text, you think it in a different way because you do not know with what emotion that person had said it. You might be in a certain emotional state and you may be actually interpreting it in that way. So which is why it is very important that and you may be feeling low and sad, but somebody sent you a joke, and like an automatic response you just sent a smiley, thinking that the other person does not even know what I'm going through. Well, how will they get to know if you're going to send a smiley to a joke when you're not feeling okay, or when you feel that you're feeling isolated? So the only way to deal with isolation is to connect with people. When a friend is calling you, don't just avoid the call, return their calls. That's very important. Don't wait for somebody else to call you up or initiate that. You take the step to initiate it, and be really supportive and empathetic towards each other. It's very important that we don't just build things in our minds thinking that but this is how he may be thinking about me and this is how she may be thinking about me. We tend to build a lot of things in our mind. So it's very important that when you connect, that's when a lot of these misunderstandings don't take place. So please do that. I think that's very, very important. Don't have a reflexive response of emoticons, but actually show virtually to each other how you are actually feeling. I tend to overthink certain decisions while I make others too quickly. Is there a formula for effective thinking? Well, it may also be in context with what are these things where you're overthinking. If it's something that you would want to perhaps think and take a more informed decision, you may be a little overthinking a little more about that, and that's, I think, quite normal. What you need to understand is when you're thinking about something, you take different perspectives and then you move forward with it. Sometimes when you're deciding on something, you talk to important people, significant people, but just don't keep doing that as well, because sometimes a lot of information from other people also can make you confused. So it's important that you know whom to reach out to, understand from them the perspective, and then just see how you can how would you like to move forward with it. So that's how we go about it. But thinking particularly, I think things in which you are able to take decisions very quickly may be more simple and you may be feeling more confident about it. But things that you may not be feeling very confident are also things where you may be overthinking. So you have to just look at that aspect and just work on that particular part. That what is the thing which is not making me feel very confident about, and I'm just thinking more and more about it. So for example, people who don't feel very confident about writing blogs, writing articles, maybe actually overthinking. But for the other person, it might just be they just write without thinking too much. So it's about just practicing. So the people who overthink a lot in terms of writing, just keep writing and you'll realize that you'll think less and less and you'll feel more and more confident to keep doing to write. So it's I think it's just very contextual in what situation you are thinking. How to boost your self-confidence and not get nervous around people. Self-confidence is about self-belief, and which is why I said take it as an exercise of self-awareness. Make a list of your strengths, make a list of your virtues, make a list of your skills. And when I say skills, skill would be like a writing skill would be like public speaking skill would be like playing an instrument. When I say strengths and virtues, it's about empathy, being empathetic, being resilient, being strong. These are your strengths and virtues. A lot many times we actually don't pay a lot of importance to our strengths and virtues because we feel everybody is kind. What is so different about it? Anybody can be empathetic. What is so different about it? But then it talks about who you are. So whether other person is there, empathetic, kind, but that's who you are as well. So it's very important to have that understanding of who you are. So even if you're kind, empathetic, caring, nurturing, these are your strengths. And along with that, you will also have some skills, identify both. How can individual improve his or irritated mood during this period? Like I said, that when you're feeling irritated, give yourself a little time, give yourself a little space, but at the same time, engage yourself in various things, find meaning in your day-to-day things, immerse yourself in things that you do, enjoy them, do them with a sense of joy. You will feel better. Unmute yourself. It is a good way, but it's not always convenient for people having social anxiety or who fear coming out in the limelight. What can we do to come out of this? Also, at times it happens that we want to do something, but we are hesitant, scared of social media, hate, and it pushes us even more down how to deal with it. So, when I say unmute yourself, I'm not saying that you have to go out in a social media or public space to talk about it. When I say unmute yourself, I'm saying that reach out to the trusted people around you with whom you can share what you're going through. And at the same time, when you know you are having social anxiety or you're having any other form of mental health related problem, reach out to an expert and talk to them. Unmuting means that you seek help at the right time from the right people. That is very, very important. And nowadays, there are a lot of websites which are a safe space for people who are actually, undergoing some mental health related problems. So if you ever feel that you would want to share something, find those groups, find those, blogs, find those spaces where it's a safe space when you share something about yourself, but not just, abruptly on a social media page. What can we do to increase concentration since we feel distracted sometimes during lectures? Do some concentration building exercises. Instrumental music helps. Puzzles, Sudoku, doing a concentration exercise like canceling E for 10 minutes every day. Just keep canceling E. All of these things help. A lot of time work on ourselves amid this pandemic, but do you also think that this has also induced pressure on people for being productive and has ultimately added on to their anxiety? What can be done to reassure, help, and relax? So, pressure happens the moment we compare ourselves with the others. So do not compare yourself with what others are doing. You have to understand that in a given time period, we all have our own limitations. And in that particular limitations and the zone that you're in, what can I do best that can help me be more productive? So productivity is going to be in my day, what are the things that I was able to do? Even if those are simple 4-5 things, but have goal to your day. That is very, very important, in terms of productivity. You don't have to do something big, you don't have to do something fancy, but even in your normal day, what things that you did that made you feel that, yeah, it was a decent productive day that I had, without comparing with anybody else. For relaxation, I've already mentioned what you can do. Panic attacks during this time period. So I'll tell you, the nature of panic attacks is that it comes at a peak and then it goes down. When it reaches a peak, you continue to just sit calmly with yourself, breathe in and out, and you will see eventually it will go away. But panic attacks also need to be treated, so you have to reach out to a mental health expert. Anxiety, I've already mentioned. Mood swings, I think impact of COVID on physical growth and mental health of children. I do not know what is going to be the repercussion of this in the long term, but I think what we do need to understand is that we have to deal with it in a more positive way in the ongoing time period, which is why, have some space for them within the houses where they can have physical exercise, make your houses more children friendly, be flexible in your expectations, don't have a lot of tension and stress about them not being able to do their online classes very properly and assignments properly. There has to be some flexibility to it. Encourage them, help them, support, initiate those, wherever they are struggling, support them, facilitate things. At the same time, encourage them to engage in hobbies, other things that they can do, continue to talk to their friends and their peers. All these things are important to keep their mental well-being. And at large, create an atmosphere of playfulness and a sense of humor and joy within homes. That's very important. I think I've spoken about a lot of questions already.
So as we are running short of time, ma'am has given the helpline number. You can reach out to Fortis Healthcare experts and talk about your queries over there. Now I would like to deliver my vote of thanks. It is not only my duty. Sorry, yes, ma'am.
Just give me 1 second. What I will do is also write the helpline number
Yes,
837
ma'am.
6804 102. This is our Fortis helpline number.
Mm-hmm. Noted, ma'am. I'll give it to students.
Yeah, perfect. And also just so that you also, because we also continue to do a lot of mental health related information on our various social media platforms. So Pinterest is one where we've started, talking about a lot of mental health cues. So when you talk about anxiety, when you talk about some of these thoughts, how can you adaptively think about it? You'll find a lot of those cues over there. Instagram also, again, we continue to do a lot of awareness things on how to deal with your mental health related concerns and how to talk positively about mental health. We're also there on Telegram, Facebook. I'm also there on my Instagram handle and Twitter, and you'll find a lot of programs that we do free of cost for college students and even for school students with psychology on various topics. So if you are ever interested, you can always continue to just keep looking for the information and join any of these programs. They're all free of cost. Yeah. So that's
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
So it is not only my duty, but a privilege to deliver vote of thanks and express my gratitude. Firstly, I would like to thank the esteemed members of our management, Reverend Father Worki Parakat, our rector of the college, Father Principal Reverend Dr. Eric Angelo, Vice Principal Reverend Dr. Sherry George, and Vice Principal and Administrator Reverend Father Raymond Kerubin for providing us with these opportunities and support all the times. I would also like to thank our esteemed speaker, Ms. Mimansa, for accepting our invitation and enlightening the students about the importance of taking care of mental health and also addressing so many issues, ma'am. I would also like to express my gratitude to Ms. Purvi Medatwal, head of our Department of Economics and Psychology, for being present with us in supporting us and encouraging us to do our best. I also thank all the faculty members for giving their precious time to this webinar. And most importantly, I would like to thank all my students to attend this webinar and made it a huge success. Before ending, I would like to request all of you to please turn on your camera so that we can take a group photograph. Please turn on your cameras. All of you, please turn on your cameras.
It's nice to see so many faces.
Thank you all. With this, we are ending with this webinar. If you feel the need to contact, you have the contact number. Otherwise, also, you